Sci-Fi.
Hey everybody, welcome to Real Life Sci-Fi with Wade and Willie. I'm Wade.
Willie.
This is a podcast about the paranormal and contemporary mythology. Join us on patreon.com/real life sci-fi for access to 2 bonus episodes a week, video feeds, and more. Also visit reallifesci-fi.show for all of our links. Let's welcome aboard the SSRLSF. It's our good friend, producer of Schrab Home Video, Kevin Day. What up?
Hey guys, this is exciting for me. Like I'm always on the other side of the camera running this stuff. I've never been a guest on any of these shows before, so I'm a little weirded out, but I'm liking this.
I
I
thought you were
know
on,
that you're busy, and I just never thought it would ever work out to get you on. So it's good to see you.
Oh, this is great. I love this show. You know, I'm honored to be here.
I thought you were always on what's Spencer's show?
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It wasn't on purpose. It was supposed to be Jeff and Spencer, and then Jeff got super busy touring, and I just happened to be on the Zoom call. So, like, I'm there, but I'm not the performer that Spencer is. I think he could do the 75-minute show without me and not notice.
So you're like the Robin to his Stern.
Exactly.
Is that too dated? Are they still a thing? Stern and Robin, are they still?
I think
Yeah,
so.
they're still around.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is, like I said, it's about paranormal and contemporary mythology. How into those worlds are you? Do you do a lot of deep dives on YouTube about stuff?
So I used to be a believer into everything. And then something kind of shifted to me where like my pet things I was into kind of all fell flat. And then I became like, I went from like pure Willie to I think mostly Wade now on the scale.
Yeah.
I was into everything for the longest time. And then it kind of was just like a lot of it just did not pan out and turned out to be 2 guys making up stuff, not the vast conspiracy I believed in.
So when that happened, were you devastated, or like what was that? Because that's almost like realizing that the news is a lie.
It was one of those things where I think I was scared just in life in general. And a lot of the things that I was believing in made things make sense because I couldn't make sense any other way. And then when I found out, oh, actually, no, 2 guys can totally make crop circles by doing this, or, you know,
Right.
this thing was a hoax and this was a hoax and stuff like that, that actually made more sense to me. So it was almost kind of reassuring of like there weren't these 30 things that I believed in that were all terrifying to me because I couldn't explain them. And it became like, okay, you know, this is a more rational world than I thought it was.
Mhm.
With everything that you're saying, what weirds me out is to hear you saying it and then have me go like, oh, I've thought that before. But I'm like, oh, these hoaxers were created to take your attention away from the truth of it.
Yes.
So I'm like,
you know,
I don't know if I'm
I-
like backing up my beliefs by creating false things, but I also think that like fact checking websites were invented for you to not continue thinking of things that are real. But
It is. And I think one of the other things that kind of changed my viewpoint too was, you know, I'm a little embarrassed about this, but decades ago, 4chan was not the cesspool that it was. I mean, it was a cesspool, but it was a different kind. It wasn't the hate-filled thing. It was more just playful pranks. And there were so many times where I would watch somebody going, hey, let's put out a press release that looks like it came from Apple that says you can now microwave your cell phone to charge it. And then watching news pick up on that press release and then it get repeated and all this and going, I was, you know, watching the birth of a hoax from random people on the internet just thinking it would be funny to then 3 days later watching, you know, Fox News in Dallas reporting on it and going, what kind of power do we have here? Like this, nobody should have that level of power over hoaxes, you know? And that's kind of what made me start disbelieving a lot of the stuff too, was like, I saw how easy it was to start a hoax like that and have people run with it. And that kind of scares me that it's that easy to get people to believe certain things. You know, I do think there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't have the answers to. And I would love to learn more about all of them, but I believe a lot less than I used to.
Well, we'll be the judge of that. We have something here on the show called the WOW Scale. It stands for Wade or Willie. It's a 5-question quiz. At the end of the quiz, I'll give you a score anywhere between 0 and 5. If you're more of a 0, you're more of a Wade. If you're more of a 5, you're more of a Willie. Are you ready to be Wade on the WOW scale?
I am. I've been waiting for this.
First question, 3-parter. Do you believe in aliens? If so, have they visited Earth? If so, have they visited Earth in the last 300 years?
Yes, maybe. I have seen stuff in the sky that I even as a skeptic today cannot explain. And the only reasonable explanation is either insane military technology or stuff that is from another planet. So I'm going to say...
What'd you see?
This was back when I was a teenager. I had friends with me. We all saw this. This wasn't like we weren't high or anything. We saw lights in the sky zipping from like one end of the view to the other, making crazy turns, like 90-degree angle turns. They would move in formations, they'd be solo. And every night for 3 nights in a row, we go outside and we saw this happening. And
what city?
this was in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska.
And what time? Was it like between 8 and 11, or was it after that?
It was probably around midnight. And this would have been in like the mid 90s.
If it was secret military, I can't believe that they could create something that can do that without reverse engineering something else.
I agree with that. Unless they're hiding way more than we think. That was my kind of gut instinct.
And in the middle of the I grew up going to my uncle's farm for like only like 3 summers. Military bases all over. This is eastern Colorado. I know Kansas, Nebraska. There's not only are there missile silos everywhere, there's military bases everywhere, secret. Sure, I know Area 51, they do a lot of testing. They used to do a lot of testing in that area, but I feel like the whole middle of the country had a lot of testing also.
Well, what was with your questions? Did his answers not matter about what time it was and stuff?
The reason why I asked that is because I feel like the closer it is to the sunset, the sun can still catch things in space. So it's kind of making me go like, is this happening in space or is this the lower atmosphere? Yeah. Because if the sun is completely behind the earth,
so if it's
then it
midnight,
has to create its own light source, or it's not like it's.
But
not
they
like
were
the sun
lights,
catching
right?
something.
They were lights.
Yeah, no,
reflections.
they were lit up, kind of orangey lights. But everything I think I would have been able to explain it. Okay, this is some new fighter jet or something, except for the fact that they were making like hard 90-degree turns, like not banking, like literally just like turning with no arc, no nothing to it, just hard 90-degree turns. And that
maybe
was
it was the first drones.
Could have been. I don't know.
Even drones don't have the propulsion to stop and go like that. I mean, just from the little I've heard.
Have you seen drone racing? It's pretty intense what they do, man. They fly through malls and shit. It's nuts. All right, question 2, ghosts.
No, I don't think so. Every time I thought it's turned out to be something else. So I don't think so.
So you've actually had what you thought might be ghosts experiences, and then you deduced that it wasn't?
I've had other people insist like their house was haunted or something, and then later turned out like, no, you've got a flapping open thing in your attic that's making noise at night and stuff. Like, a couple times I've had people say I'm having this weird experience. I think it's a ghost, and we've tracked down what the cause was. And I feel like a lot of them can be explained that way, but not all. So I don't know, but I haven't seen anything that convinces me of ghosts.
Okay. Question 3, Bigfoot.
I would believe that it's real, but nothing has convinced me that it is.
Have you seen a lot of Bigfoot videos in the last 15 years?
Yeah, I've seen some of them, and some of them make me go, I wonder what that is. And some of them also make me go, that I know how I would fake that exact same thing. I think to me, the more reasonable answer is just because I don't know how somebody faked it doesn't mean it's not fake. But I know that's kind of pessimistic.
No, that's great. I only ask because it's weird to me how many people will say that and then have just never looked up any videos after that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me throw a couple things at you. But if you've seen them, yeah, I'm with you. It's fine.
Question number 4, Illuminati.
My feeling is that it is a real thing, but it's not the scary shadow organization that it is. It's a group of people that have let rumors go wild because they think it's funny. I don't think anything different than a higher class like Moose Lodge kind of situation of people who gather in the woods and have some weird ceremony, and like people started talking about it and they just let rumors go crazy. So
yeah.
I don't think the Illuminati as the rumor goes is true, but I
know. So
totally
that's what I'm wondering, because it feels like we're just getting this answer a lot, Willie. We need to remove Illuminati, because how do I even score that? It feels like everyone says the same thing. It's like, yeah, deep state, sure, people above the president, of course, but not like
but not any of the rituals. Yeah, not any of the like eyes wide shut.
Even maybe the rituals, but like I just don't know how to score this because everyone.
There actually is a spectrum of Illuminati too, so maybe we need to reconsider it, because there is like
I think we
sacrifices to money.
Like, when they give this answer, we should say it's a no. It's only if they believe
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the cartoon version of it, like the version you believe. You believe the cartoon version, right?
I believe that that like the lyrics and music are like are on purpose for the brainwashing of the spelling of.
Okay, Kevin, when he puts it like that, that music and lyrics have been inserted by the Illuminati into pop culture for brainwashing purposes.
I'd say I probably don't believe that part of it.
Good. Good. Okay, multiverse.
I believe it's possible. Again, I don't believe that I've seen any evidence that shows that it is, but I would totally like if proof were delivered tomorrow that the multiverse exists, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I just don't think I've seen anything right now that makes me go, yes, it's happened. I know that's a
What do
really
you think of
frustrating answer.
the guy who didn't die in prison? What do they call that? Why am I blanking on this?
Oh, the Mandela effect.
Yeah, what do you think of the
Are there any
Mandela effect?
Mandela effects that have made you go like, oh, that's interesting, or just bad memories of?
We've actually talked about this on the show I did with Spencer, That Happens, where I feel like something in my memory went wrong. And like all of a sudden one day, all the voices in South Park sounded wrong to me. And I know this is some hyper specific, weird, not even answering your question at this point, but like to me, all of a sudden, like I was like, wait, they replaced all the voice actors in South Park? Something like, and to this day, they all still sound wrong to me. And I wonder if stuff like that doesn't happen at a bigger scale. Like, I feel like our brains are kind of buggy. And I wonder if people don't have the same mistakes happening, you know, like we collectively remember Sinbad as a genie when that never happened, kind of thing. You know, like I can picture it in my head. Like, I know that happened, but I also know that it didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's
but
one
you
of the
don't think it was because some kind of cross-dimensional, like you entered a new dimension?
That's kind of a stretch to jump to when I think it's just easier that like we all have just like remembered things wrong.
Can I
But
say something about the voices?
yes.
I think, and I'm not entirely sure, but like when I watch, I'll see like a rerun of Friends or something, and all of their voices are really high. And I think what I realized is they sped it up by like 20% so that they could throw in another commercial block.
Yeah, and they do that with Seinfeld for
Ooh.
sure. They do that too, where they were
Yeah.
spacing between sentences and stuff. Like if you play Seinfeld side by side, like from the DVD or on the air, it's a completely different show. They cut so many
Wow.
like less than a second edits they make. It's crazy.
The Mandela effect, I don't believe in at all. But I do believe if there was some kind of time war, that the same effect would happen. But I think people just have bad memories. The Nelson Mandela thing always pisses me off because I'm like, well, were you looking up Nelson Mandela? Like what? You know,
I mean,
like
that one
no, you weren't.
specifically pisses me off because it's like the arrogance of mistaking history. Like the Fruit of the Loom stuff, I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care. But like something that is that big as like a historical, like he didn't die in prison.
Yeah, I remember
It's
him
just
getting
like,
out. I'm like, yeah.
I don't
I
remember
think
anything about it because I was young enough where I didn't pay attention to the news.
well, that's the thing. I think we're all kind of at the age, you know, at least we are, where at that time we weren't paying that much attention to things. The next day in school, the teacher was like, you know, Nelson Mandela died in prison. We ought to went, okay, and moved on. You know, like it wouldn't have
Right.
been a shock either way.
Yeah.
And I can see how we would believe that now. If this whole Mandela effect thing hadn't happened and you told me, yeah, Nelson Mandela died in prison, I would just, okay, I just must not have known that.
Me too. Exactly. I think the reason I learned he didn't die in prison was because of the Mandela effect. Like, I just never thought of Nelson Mandela at all
Yeah.
because it was like whatever. It was news when we were young. You never really go back and revisit that stuff. I was just watching something the other day. I forget what it was, but it was like, oh, Chernobyl. I was watching this Chernobyl series on HBO, and it was like when I was alive. But I didn't. I've never thought about it because it's always just been something that I've heard of
Yeah,
and
even the
just assumed
nuclear
it was.
meltdown in the news when it happened was just like, well, I don't know what that is. I'm going back to my GI Joes.
Yeah, exactly. So you are a straight up zero. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to Team Wade, and let's really put the screws to Willie on this one.
I feel like I could be convinced of a lot of these things. I just haven't been yet. So
There's a certain amount of apathy, I think, with certain guests where it's like I've never looked into, ghosts or Bigfoot, so it's kind of like that's kind of where I am, and we talk about these things, and I have a generally skeptical mind, but it's not like I'm fighting against any of them. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't think it's right. So I think that's why you're exactly like me.
I'll take it.
Willie, hit us with the topic.
Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi, internet surveillance. We'll explore how it shapes our digital lives, balancing security, whatever, privacy in an increasingly connected world. It all kind of happened without us having a say in it. Was it all right or wrong? Are we at a good place right now in America with internet surveillance? Or should we be reevaluating all this stuff and surveilling those who surveil us? Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi. I would say, Kevin, you are a computer wizard. And
I try to be.
And I don't know too many wizards. I'll just start by asking this question. Do you think we are at a good place in America right now for internet surveillance?
Without a doubt, we are being surveilled. The NSA in particular and the CIA have both made it their mission to know what's going on. They don't want any more intelligence failures. They don't want to be surprised by something happening within the country. But at the same time, technology companies like Apple specifically, I can point to, are making it very hard for them to do what they want to do. iMessage on iPhones has encryption that the NSA has many times complained that they can't break. Now, whether they can or not, or it's just really hard, I don't know. But it's not easy for them like it used to be. There was a period, not that long ago, where in the late 90s, where this big bombshell got dropped, that the NSA had this room in one of AT&T's buildings in San Francisco. They called it room 641A. And this bombshell got dropped that the NSA has this room inside AT&T where basically every connection that went into this phone company building all went into this room through some NSA equipment and then back out to the world. It pretty much gave them the ability to watch who was calling who, text messages, everything. And they had those all over the country. This was just the one that somebody finally leaked. So we are being surveilled. What they're doing with it, I don't know. Are they paying attention to this Zoom call right now? Probably not.
Do you think that it's because when the whole Prism thing happened, that was Snowden, right?
Yes.
It's sort of made headlines and then kind of went away. No one really did anything. I don't remember any congressman introducing any sort of bills.
Yeah.
So we know that we are. There's proof of it.
Yes. And, it's gone back and forth where, the FISA Act gave security agencies a stronger ability to do surveillance. Now they can just basically say something like, if somebody who's in Al-Qaeda misdials your number, Wade, and calls you, they have probable cause to surveil you for the rest of your life, basically, is the way it's written. Any person who's had any connection to anybody that they know has done something wrong is enough reason for them now to watch you for the rest of your life. And so that being public kind of makes me feel like, if they're admitting to that much, they can do whatever they want.
Right. But don't you think it's too much? It's just too much. If they're surveilling every United States citizen, how could you even parse any of that? I worked on reality shows where we had to log footage, and it was 40 hours of footage a week, and it was too much. So how are they doing, how many hours are there in a week?
Yeah. Unlimited if you're
72,
if you're a computer.
Well, times every American, so they just have trillions. I mean, how could you even go through that stuff?
Well, so about 10 years ago, it became public that the NSA built, they call it the Utah Data Center. In the middle of nothing in Utah, they built this multi-million square foot facility with more computers in it than you could imagine. They've done very little to explain what's inside it, but we do know based off of how much power it's drawing. This facility draws 65 megawatts, which is more than some cities.
They're mining crypto.
Well, that's what I would do with it. But no, that's more power than Netflix uses. Right now, some appreciable portion of the country is watching videos on Netflix, okay? And this one facility that they have, and they have multiple, but this one facility is drawing more power than all of Netflix put together. They also have been able to sort of guess based off of the fact that there's only so many companies that make giant hard drives to store data in. And all of these are publicly traded companies. you know, if the NSA comes to you and says they want to buy, you know, $1 billion worth of hard drives, you can't leave that off your books, but at the same time, you can't really list what that was for. So people have been able to piece together based off of public filings and things like that, that this company doesn't have gigabytes, they don't have terabytes, they have exabytes, you know, of data storage, which is more than anything, you know. So we've been able to prove based off of how much power they're using that they have a ridiculous number of computers. I mean, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of computers in there. They have enough storage to store entire encyclopedias off every single person in the country and still have plenty of space left over.
But do they have any way to actually look at that stuff in a useful way, you know? Because are we to AI yet to where it can go through and like really transcribe everything, make it a searchable database?
The answer is I don't know. And like, there's an interesting story I'll get to in a minute, but like the NSA has always been probably 20 years ahead of commercial use in things. You know, they whenever they've like leaked things in the past or things have come out, they tend to be 10 to 20 years ahead of the rest of us. I look at how much AI has grown in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And now picture them being 20 years ahead of that. Also, too, they don't need to sift through anything, you know, everything. What they can do is just store everything. And then later, if they have a reason to look into you, they can now go back and go through with a fine-tooth comb and find out every single thing you've ever thought.
Right.
Where, you know, so if they have the space to store it, and then deal with it later. And that's how I would solve that problem if I were them.
See, my issue is I you know, well, a lot of this did change because of 9/11, but you know, they didn't want to fail anymore. And so it's cool to see them fighting to try to stop something else. But at this point now, every American, they're checking your connections and you're being profiled. And so sure, there's searches on keywords, all this stuff. Shouldn't we start a big movement to maybe we could send an email that has 1 million keywords that would put you on a list and just give it to everyone so that everyone's on the list to like fuck with that?
Doing that on the correct scale might actually be effective, you know, until they can learn how to spot that and work around it. But yeah, I mean, there used to be people on like security mailing lists that I was involved, stuff like that, would just literally have their signature at the bottom of every email be just a bunch of random words that would, you know, and get them on a list basically. So people have been doing that for a while, but I don't think at enough of a scale that's put a dent in what they can store at this point.
We're only talking about America here, right?
Europe and America work together with a lot of this stuff.
But I just means in terms of like our laws, constitutionally, you're still protected enough where they can't just come after you for nothing, right? I mean, they can't just like profile you, throw you in a jail, because judges aren't going to see all of that info and they're going to be like, well, why are you here?
No, but there's parallel construction though, you know, where they can go to the Department of Justice and say, you can't, none of this is admissible, but this person here is doing this. Now you go and find some other way of proving that. And I think that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that's a conspiracy.
Yeah,
I
that's
definitely
just,
believe it.
that's spies, right? Isn't that just spies?
Because of 9/11, at some point, if you are one of these people that could be a threat, they can hold you without
Sure, I know, but that doesn't seem like something I need to be worried about, and I really don't care about anyone that happens to.
I mean, that's the weird thing. The argument that I hate the most is, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you know, you shouldn't worry about it. And I know that's
horrible.
What you're saying.
I'm totally with you. It's a horrible fucking thing to say.
No matter how much we are against this, we actually can't do anything about it because the people that would fight anything that we would build up, they're behind the scenes anyway. So they can fight us without even being public.
Right. And so I think it matters a lot what they're actually doing with this stuff, right? Because like if I'm not afraid of going to a black site because one time I emailed Al Qaeda and said, "What's up?
Check out my latest video."
Then like here's what I'm trying to say with the Constitution and laws and everything, even if they're spying on us, which is unconstitutional, right? Because of the Fourth Amendment, unless they've rewritten laws now, and I'm sure they have. But it doesn't feel like, at least in the administration so far, that they've weaponized it, right? Against the American citizens.
No, I can't really point to any examples. I think they're overstepping in what they're looking at, but I I can't point to many examples where they're abusing this, you know. But, and you're right, while there is no law that says, you know, or that allows them to do this, they did find an interesting loophole though. Like, you know, there's the Five Eyes alignment between it's the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and UK. So we can't spy on our own citizens, but we can make it super easy for, say, Australia to get a feed of what the NSA is seeing, have them do our spying, and then come to us with information they found. And that's totally legal. You know,
Right.
we can say, you know, hey, Australia, look through these files for us and tell us if you see anything, and we'll do the same for you. And then if Australia comes running going, hey, we found this evidence about one of your citizens, that's completely admissible.
I'm cool with that if they would come out and say, okay, you know, we stopped this from happening, we stopped this from happening. Go about your day, but like we are doing a good job with that. Without it,
well, you're not wrong, but that's not Machiavellian at all, man. That's how you show your cards, and then you get busted. Like they can't say the good things that they did, because then that's going to tip off the criminals, right? Or the terrorists, or whatever you want to call them.
I can give you one example. This is old enough that it goes back to the 70s. So all of the internet today is based off of encryption. You know, we want to make sure that, like, if you're sat at Starbucks browsing on Amazon, that's going over public radio waves. We want to make sure that somebody sitting next to you in Starbucks can't look at your credit card number, or they can't even tell what site you're browsing, or, you know, they can't see your text messages. Everything is encrypted. So one of the early encryption standards was called DES, the Data Encryption Standard. And the idea was supposed to be that, like, before that time, you know, before they came up with this standard, it was sort of the Wild West where every computer company had their own encryption standard, and they all were terrible. And basically the NSA flat out said, you know, all of you guys are making your own encryption. We can break all of this because you guys don't know what you're doing. So they ordered NIST, N-I-S-T, it's the National Institute for Standards and Testing, I think, to come up with a standard for encryption, and said, if you want the US government to buy your computers, whatever standard NIST comes up with, you all have to use. And everyone's like, wait, this seems like a trap. You know, like you're going to get us to use something that is definitely something you can break, you know? So they brought all these mathematicians and computer scientists all together in, and they all came up with this standard. And all, like, basically the top minds in the country all sat around, looked at this, and said, with the technology that we have today in 1970, this is the best encryption we can do for a reasonable amount of money. And they sent it to the NSA for review. And the NSA came back and said, these two numbers here in this formula, change them to these other two numbers, but we won't tell you why. And that left all these mathematicians, like, really confused of, like, okay, are they helping us or hurting us here? Because they wouldn't explain what changing these two random numbers did. It was a case of, like, them baffled by this, of, like, you know, we basically just randomly picked two numbers and put it in this formula, and you're saying pick two different random numbers? This makes no sense. Why should we do this? Finally, it came down to the NSA telling NIST, listen, if you don't accept our changes, we're not going to accept this proposal. We're not going to buy any of your computers. You have to do this. So they did it. And then it came out 20 years later that the NSA's changes were to protect against this type of ability to break encryption that only they knew about at the time. And then it later turned out that in parallel, Russia had also discovered this same flaw, and that the changes the NSA made the industry make protected us from that. You know, there is examples of the security agencies doing things like this that actually help us. And it kind of makes me wonder if some of the stuff that they're doing right now, like, I don't mean to be this, like, wide-eyed optimist that, oh, the government's only got our best interest in mind. But when they have a track history of doing things like this, that does show that they're trying to help us. You know, one of the NSA's missions is not just to spy on us, but also to ensure the security of businesses and people in our country. And they seem to have, in some cases, done this. I have counterexamples, too, of them actually doing the exact opposite. But there are multiple examples I can give you of them doing stuff like this, of saying, hey, we're not going to tip our hand. We're not going to tell you how we know this, but do this. I promise it's for your own good. And they've been, every single time they've done this, they've been right.
Is the whole topic just, should we trust the government? Or, because now I'm like,
you know, when I try to think of the positives of because, you know, I don't want to just focus on the negatives. I will say that my fear of the negatives is just kind of the China police state, where they're using all their technology against every citizen, and they kind of can't do anything about it, because at this point, if you do speak up, you are an enemy of the state. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, you know, of just like,
yeah, I get that. I just feel like, and maybe I'm also woefully optimistic or whatever, it just feels like we don't have an authoritarian regime in place. Because if they wanted to do that, the encryption thing would be like 10 steps down. I mean, like, it
Well,
would be
here's my
personal
fear.
very quickly.
This is where it all comes from. Okay. The fact that they came up with a ban of TikTok so quickly, they all teamed up together to ban TikTok. Yet they've already like sold half of it to an American company. They already changed the company and made stipulations and whatnot for things that companies we currently are using, like Facebook and Instagram, are doing against us. So it's like, let's ban TikTok because they're spying on you. Well, you guys are fucking spying us on this. So it makes me say like, oh, sure, they might be helping to stop other countries from spying on us, but I think they really don't have the control of the spread of information that TikTok has. And so that's where this whole topic comes from, is like, this can't be a good thing, banning TikTok.
I haven't been reading up on the TikTok thing. I remember the proposed ban. Is it actually banned? Can't I still log into it right now?
Yeah, nothing has changed yet. I always kind of felt like there was maybe going to be a constitutional challenge to like, can the government ban a specific business? Like you can ban practices that they do, but it would be really difficult, I think, for them to go, this business here is now illegal, like your company is gone. That's never happened before. I mean, we've made companies break up before and things like that, but we've never been
Right.
like, Microsoft, you're out of business right now. That's
Yeah.
not. So I don't even know how far that could go if they really pushed it. To me, that felt more like posturing of trying to get them to make concessions rather than actually intending on a full ban.
What was behind it? Just because it was a Chinese company and they were just mining too much data? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, out of all of them, TikTok isn't the worst. It does send a lot of data back to China about you. There's that new site called Temu, Temu, that you can
Yeah.
buy stuff super cheap.
Mhm.
It's like a Chinese Amazon.
Yeah,
Right?
that has permissions to do whatever it wants on your phone. It has access to your contacts. It can turn your microphone on whenever it wants. It has all these features in it that, like, if anything, we should be worried about that, not TikTok, because that app I've looked at is terrifying. TikTok does send a lot of data, and they know a lot about it. And I think one of the bigger concerns too is that half the country is getting their news from TikTok now, and by deciding what to show you, they could radicalize a large percentage of the population.
Right.
They could
I mean,
do,
it's the same thing as Facebook in the 2000 what 16 election,
yeah.
where Facebook just became like a propaganda machine. Here's my question though, because you talked about turning the mic on and stuff. Where do you stand on this? Our phones are listening to us all the time. Like when you have a conversation about shoes to your wife, and then you
Mhm.
start getting shoe ads. What's that about?
I don't think what people think is happening is what's actually happening, because most of the phones that we use are at some level open source. Like if you're on my Wi-Fi, while I can't necessarily see the traffic that your phone is sending, I can tell how much your phone is sending. And there is just no way your phone is always listening and uploading what it hears to somewhere else. Like, there's never been any example of somebody finding that your phone did that. There's never been any example of people seeing code that did that. What I think is happening is that advertisers especially have just gotten so good at knowing what you want before you even know it. There's kind of like this famous case of this girl started getting like baby ads in the mail from
Mhm.
Target, and her father gets all mad about this, and then it later turns out she's pregnant. Target finally like explained how they were able to do this, and it was like, just like, it wasn't something they had specifically designed, but like their primitive AI at the time realized, like, if your shopping pattern changes, that you start buying these certain things, you may be pregnant before you know you're pregnant. And without even any intent behind it, their system learned that and started sending her baby ads in the mail. I think stuff like that is what's going on there.
See, I've wondered
Like
that too,
pick like
because like picture AI
just too many
on the
pickles.
on the
She
shopping
bought too many.
scale,
She bought too
right?
many pickles.
Like
So
we,
I'm just trying to get a joke in.
yeah, and mashed potatoes, yeah, too extra ketchup. I've always thought about that too, because I'm like, well, how different am I from most people I grew up with? Oh, I have nostalgic things, even from looking at the groups that I'm in or whatever. I know that AI can predict something that I would want to buy, whether I talked about it or not, because I like to buy things.
What about me? I've been really good or bad, probably to the hindrance of my career, about like not using social media, not any sort of conscious choice. I just like don't get it and I don't like it. So I don't use it. So doesn't that mean they got nothing? They got
But it's your
nothing on
more
me.
it's more your shopping history than what you're looking at, you know?
Yeah, shopping history, search history, Google, if you use Google as your search engine, I mean, a
Nope.
decade ago, Google bought DoubleClick, the biggest ad agency, and it really is like DoubleClick now owns Google, is the other way, all of
I'm a
Google's money.
DuckDuckGo man.
Okay. Unless you go through great pains, so many sites that you go to have that little like, hey, click here to like this on Facebook. Isn't just a button that's to click here to like it on Facebook. It's to tell Facebook you were on this site looking at brown chairs. And now
Yeah.
Facebook's ad system knows later when they run ads on some other site to show you ads for brown chairs.
But do people do that? Do they really click that they liked shit?
You
Like,
don't even
why
have to
would
click
you?
it. Just the fact that that image
Okay.
loaded was enough to tell them you were
It's
there
just a
on this
tracking.
page.
Got it. Yeah.
That's why all the social
I
media sites push so hard to have like, hey, put this on your website to make it easy for people to like your post or to join your, Patreon or whatever. All of those things send back tracking information, and how each one uses it varies depending on the site, but they all do.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the moments where I was looking at my doctor's note from it. I never said it out loud. And all of a sudden I'm getting ads for high triglycerides. But I was like, oh shit, I forgot. I didn't go through an app. I went to a website. And so
Yeah.
there was a one-to-one there. And
especially
anytime
for-
somebody says I thought of something, I'm like, well, I really feel like the algorithm, the shopping algorithm will get what you were thinking of if it's something related to shopping.
And especially if it's medical too. For the longest time, it used to be that if you wanted to appear on Google's search engine ads, you had to bid with other people. And for the longest time, the keyword that was the most expensive thing to advertise on for Google was mesothelioma. So if you had anything to do with asbestos searches in your history whatsoever, ads would start appearing for mesothelioma that was sometimes costing them $1,000 just to make one ad appear on your site. That's how high the bids got.
Is that because of all of the class action lawsuits? This is like a law firm that's like, we gotta get as many people.
Yes, because if you think you might have it, chances are you probably do. People don't search for that stuff for the fun of it. And
well, they might search for it now because they're wondering what all these commercials are talking about.
Right. Well, once
like,
the commercial started,
is mesothelioma? Now it feels it feels like it's just oversaturated.
Yeah, but there was a period where for fun, you could just type in, I think I was exposed to asbestos, and then click on the first ad, and you knew you just cost some law firm $1,000.
Maybe I should have mesothelioma. Maybe I should get in on this. Can we grift?
I'm surprised I don't, man. For reals.
What?
Roofing houses that had asbestos without reporting that they did, like, and not using the proper precautions. Like, fuck, man. Even working on
houses for like one summer.
Yeah, but every house we did had asbestos. And also in the movie industry, there's so many of these places that are like, okay, these tiles are asbestos. It has been painted. You're not allowed to drill into it. Hang a chandelier somehow. You can't drill into the ceiling. Like, okay, well, I kind of need to drill into the ceiling and just not tell anybody, like I've had at least 20 jobs where I had to hang shit and I wasn't allowed to drill in, but it's the only thing I could do.
I would have done like a series of pulleys and wires. You got to think about this stuff. So when it comes to, listen, companies tracking us, sure, they want to sell us shit. I understand that data is the most lucrative thing currently, right? It's about to be energy though. But when it comes to the government, outside of throwing us in jail, do you think they also sell this stuff? Or do you think it's just for them?
I don't know that it's the kind of stuff they collect is valuable enough compared to what they risk losing if enough people saw what they were collecting. I think it's more valuable for them to keep it a secret than it is to do anything with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I just don't think it makes enough sense.
Do you think that if there were a leak that anyone would do it? Because didn't we already go through this? Like, we've been through it. We've seen that they're spying on us. Nothing changed. Everyone just kind of went back to eating their starbursts. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, dude. The Snowden and all the whistleblower leaks that we've had have weirded me out because they've pointed out some very crucial things that we did nothing about, and it's just kind of depressing. And so that's why I'm like, well, what should we be pointing out right now? Like what, because we're so digital right now, and it's only going to get exponentially more
I feel
digital.
like all you can really do, I mean, I remember being a kid and like just kind of knowing that my phone line was tapped. It probably wasn't, but like that was my fun childhood.
But it was accepted to be like, like for years, like selling weed to my friends. It's like, well, don't text me the fucking word.
Yeah, I feel like just knowing it is all you can do, right? And then just be more careful.
Yeah, I mean, I just treat, like, unless I go through great pains, I just assume anything I do on the internet, somebody has the ability to watch. Whether they are or not doesn't matter. I wouldn't do anything online that I wouldn't want the government to see.
Right. It's like they're not going to stop, and they almost can't stop because none of the other countries are going to stop, right? And so just strategically they wouldn't do that. Even if even if some shithead from Tennessee passes a bill that says they can't, they still will.
Like my fear is like, when does being a troll become criminal? Because I'm cool trolling anything government in all realms. I'd be cool trolling the FBI. Why not? Why shouldn't I?
The real answer is, as long as it's the FBI, it's probably okay. Like if you can't troll local cops because then they fuck with you. So don't do that. Like don't go on the LAPD's fucking Facebook page and call them all pigs, because then they'll write you down and get your plates, and then you get a bunch of tickets, and they'll just make your life miserable. Because there's like a million laws in America, they can always catch you with something. I think your troll would have to hinder them in some way, right? It would have to fuck them up somehow, and then they would just come after you with something.
Yeah, I mean, you picture anybody having a bad day. I always say this: if you're ever on a phone call with the unemployment office, don't piss anybody off, because you will be put onto a list that makes it hard for you to fill out forms every time. I know people that have done it, yelled at the wrong person, and then they
I just like that's almost like a common sense. Like, why would you yell at any of these people? They don't have anything to do with it. They're just operating phones.
So the military has what they call EAMs, emergency action messages, that come from the Strategic Air Command. Like basically, like if we're about to launch nukes, it's going to be an EAM that they send out, which is basically like broadcast over the radio. You can hear it all throughout the hemisphere. It's the most powerful transmitter the military has, and it makes sure that no matter where you are, anywhere that we care about, you hear the order to launch your nukes. Okay, and it's these voice messages that all start out the same way. Like you can go onto YouTube and listen to these things where you hear them say, Sky King, do not answer." That's how you know something is about to go down. And they do drills all the time too, where they'll say it's a drill beforehand and stuff like this. And during something, I forget what it was, but like Russia sent a fighter that was sort of near Alaska, and that spooked the Air Force. And so what happens every time is, we scramble jets, and then you'll hear coming out of probably an airbase in Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, one of these Sky King messages. Well, somebody with a ham radio somewhere in the West Coast started broadcasting over top of them with an even stronger transmitter. And if you decoded it, it was images of that troll face meme over and over and over again. And as far as I know, whoever did that never got caught. I can't imagine the Air Force was pleased by somebody stomping on top of their nuclear launch code broadcast. But, if you want to troll the government, whoever did that, I'm pretty sure got away with it. No one ever took credit for it. No one ever got arrested.
Let's get into this then. What are your thoughts on Anonymous and like the white hat hacker guys? Like, what are these guys? Are they cool, or are they just like little nerds who like can't?
Let me say first, because Kevin, I'm sure you have a better answer. But to me, and coming from looking up into this and being into conspiracy theories and all this stuff, Anonymous to me kind of like came out swinging their dicks real big, just like, hey man, watch out, world, because we're here to protect you. And they did nothing. They've done nothing. Maybe they all got turned into hackers for the NSA, like the hackers is a thing that like used to be a thing. And now there's no such thing, because anybody who probably can hack has has already been infiltrated by a secret 3-letter organization. But Kevin, what do you think?
Anybody who wants to say we are part of Anonymous is. There is no central organization. There is no like in group. There's no Discord they all hang out in. You know, it's such this loose organization that anybody who wants to say they're in it is in it. And people will do stupid things under the name Anonymous that have no connection to the other people that are doing things under the name Anonymous. So it's really hard to pin any specific thing on any group because the group is shifting constantly and there's subgroups that don't talk to each other. And there's other times more sophisticated organized hackers that will do things under the name Anonymous because they know they can maybe deflect attention away from who really did something. You're right.
But knowing all that, don't you think, I'm just wondering, are there good hackers who are like out there? I understand the whole anonymous thing is more of like a boogeyman than anything, but like, are there good hackers who can like that can go against the NSA?
Yes, just it's just not as, you know, it really depends on what you mean. You know, like I do sort of like, I know this sounds so nerdy, but like as a hobby, I do security research stuff. And like I found bugs in Microsoft products and, you know, like basically things that would drastically affect the internet. And I went through the whole process of like responsibly notifying the people involved. And then that actually got somebody from the Department of Homeland Security calling me and then sending someone to come talk to me about, hey, what do you know? When did you learn this? Who have you told? We want next time, tell us first, stuff like that, you know, under the guise of we know how to make sure the right people find out about it before the wrong people find out about it, which may be true. I don't know. But, you know, there are people that do stuff like that all the time. Are there people who are going to break into this facility, you know, in Utah that has these 100,000 computers and find out what's there? I doubt it. You don't get a job at the NSA securing stuff like this to screw it up that badly. Have they done some cool things? Probably, but I think for the most part, it's just bored kids that are playing pranks.
I can't think of anything that they've done, you know? And so it weirds me out because like when I picture these whistleblowers that are running for their lives, basically, these are the kind of hackers we need to just release this information that can't really exist anymore. Here's all this data.
Problem is the incentives to do that aren't as good as some of the other incentives. Like, you know, if I want to break into Paramount so that I can see the new Star Trek movie before it comes out, the exploit that I use to do that is probably not specific to Paramount. It's probably a bug in the firewall they use or the router they use or something like that. And if I know a way of getting past someone's firewall, that is worth so much more to me doing other things with it than breaking into one place and then leaking data from it. There are companies that will pay you 6-figure sums for just telling them how you did it, as long as you keep that a secret and don't ever use it. So yeah, the people who know how to do things like that aren't going to do this white hat hacker thing that we see in the movies because you can make a living using that same skill somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm being very much a movie guy with it, but I am also thinking of real things, like that shitty church that always goes to like funerals and says like God hates the F slur. Those people, what's their Westboro
Baptist? Yeah.
And then like didn't Anonymous kind of fuck with them a little bit?
Yeah, I mean anybody can like cause a denial of service attack to take your site down.
But that's all I want. I just want people to get fucked with, man. Like I want evil people to get fucked with. Like people who don't align with integrity. I'm like, just get rid of those fuckers. Like fuck them up, you know? Could I hire a hacker for my enemies, for my personal enemies? Could I like hire a hacker? Kevin, it sounds like you know a few, or you might even be one. Can I just give you a list of people I don't like, and then you can do some shit to their internet somehow?
Well, that's a fun thing, is to come up with like a top 20 list of companies that should be hacked, and then just let it go. Like we should come up with a top 20 evil list. Like come up with lists of, hey, you're a new hacker.
Companies are evil. Like how do you categorize evil companies? Like they're all bad. So I'm talking like people who have wronged me personally, you know?
Ooh,
yeah. There's a limit to what you can do though. You know, like if they have a website, if I wanted to take it down, could I? For a while, yes. Like until they move.
How about this? Could I frame them? Can you put a bunch of stuff on their computer I'm not saying CP, but could you put that on their computer and then I can call in a little anonymous tip?
Yeah, that's one of the things too.
Ooh,
Actually, it's an
let's
interesting
do it.
surveillance thing. Is that
Let's do it.
a while back, Apple was talking about having a thing on your phone that was looking for images you should not have on your phone, and then telling Apple if you did. And that
Yeah, that
was
worries me.
that did not happen. People, because basically what was happening was the government was pressuring Apple of like, hey, people are using iMessage to send pictures of things they shouldn't have to each other. We need you to detect that. And Apple was going, well, everything's encrypted. We can't see, like, we can't, even if we want to, see what these two people are saying. It's impossible. It's encrypted. The only thing we could do is put something on their phones. And the government was like, okay, do that then. It's either that or remove encryption. And then thankfully, Apple stood up and just went, we're going to do neither one of those things because we're not going to make it so that we can break the encryption. That defeats the whole purpose. And when we floated the idea of it, I think they did this deliberately because I think they knew what was going to happen. But when we floated the idea publicly of having something on your phone that tattled on you, people didn't like that very much. And so it never
Yeah.
went there either.
How did Apple get out from under? I think it was a shooter or someone, like a mass shooter. I don't remember. They had his iPhone and they were like, Apple, come and break this. And Apple was like, no, man, like we're not going to do that. How do they refuse? Like,
So what ended up happening was, so there are companies that produce tools that for certain phones, if you plug them into this specific box, it will just immediately try every possible pin to unlock it and things like that.
hmm,
Those don't, as far as we know, don't work on modern, like the iPhone 14 and 15, they don't work on. Older than that, they do. Apple added a lot of protections to the 14 and 15 specifically to stop these companies from being able to do that. But how that ended up was the FBI basically just a few days later went, never mind, we added the phone anyway. It doesn't matter anymore. So, and then they never revealed how they did it, but it probably was with one of these boxes.
I always thought
Right?
it
Because
was
I,
pretty
I
cool of
just
Apple
heard,
to not do it, though.
I don't remember any specific details, but there's a company out there that was hired to hack into the phone of the guy that tried to kill Trump. They can break into his phone, and they probably did. He probably didn't text anybody he was going to do anything.
If Walmart knows you're pregnant, there's got to be some shit on his phone that like you could watch the links and the chain of information and be like, oh, he's a shooter because he's mentally unwell. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what you're going to find on any of these things. The answer is always mental illness.
I think in this case too, for the guy that shot at Trump, I think they were able to say that they got into the phone with not needing any of that technology. Like his parents knew his password or something. Like that they got
Right.
into it some way without needing anything.
You got his body, right? Just put it up to his face. Or do they get separated at such an early point that you can't get access to his face anymore?
I don't know. It's one of the reasons why that Apple moved away from the fingerprint scanner though to the face scanner, because they can require that you actually be looking at the camera and stuff where your fingerprint, you can be dead and your fingerprint still works.
Why wouldn't a photo of me work? Why doesn't that work?
Take a phone at the unlock screen and then use the camera on another phone to look at it. Your phone is like blasting out this array of dots that you can't see. They're infrared, where it's mapping the contours of your face. You would need to make a 3D image of your
Okay.
face for one.
That's crazy that it's that advanced, man.
It also looks at the amount of reflection coming back from your eyes. So you would need to not just have a piece of paper that is your eyes. Your eyes actually need to be slightly glossy because that won't work
Whoa.
either.
They thought of everything.
It can't be still either. One of the reasons why sometimes when you try to unlock your phone, if you have the face unlock, it sits there for a second until you look at it. It's looking to make sure your eye moves, because if it's not sure that your eye, if it even slightly thinks your eye is not real, it waits to see eye movement. So they have all these checks in there. I don't know if it's possible for a corpse to unlock their phone, but it sounds like no.
It would make for a lame Mission Impossible movie, but pretty cool.
It would. It would.
Mission Impossible would be easy. You just put the mask on that they make. They make those masks. Throw that on.
Oh,
You look
yeah,
exactly
yeah.
like
We've got to cut his skin off.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Anything else? I mean, this is about time, but what do you think? Anything?
I definitely think that there is some misuse going on with our digital information. I love the idea of owning the digital version of ourselves. I don't know if we'll ever get there because the system is already set up for everyone to make money off of everything that you do and choose and everything. But I like that. And I think that we should lean that way because the future is digital. And so this whole topic to me is brought up because in order for us to have a better future, we just have to think a little bit more about what's possible before we get there.
But the problem with that is we already know that the government is 20 years ahead of us. So everything that we can think of has been rendered
so
moot.
we need these whistleblowers and people working in here to be a part of this, you know. And I'm very thankful for how many people have come forward with all the shit that's been going on, because we're really in the dark about everything.
Definitely. I you know, well, I don't want people to keep ruining their lives like what happened with Edward Snowden and stuff like that. I think there needs to be a better way for people to blow the whistle and stuff like this and not have their life destroyed.
I'm baffled by the Snowden thing because it feels like we already had protections and they just go out the window.
Agreed. Like, you know, he didn't really handle it the best way, I don't think. You know, I think if he'd attempted at least to try to do it the correct whistleblower way first and that failed, and then go into the media, he might have had a different outcome, but also he might have just disappeared. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. He'd be one of these guys on the black sites I don't care about.
Exactly.
And I still know that they're spying on us, Snowden. You did nothing. I know that. I already knew it. I gleaned it. So thanks a lot. Sorry, you're in Russia now? Where is he? Did we forgive him?
No, he's still in Russia.
No, yeah.
We didn't forgive him yet.
No.
Well, man.
RFK is going to pardon him.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Dude, the RFK thing, you gotta read more about this dude.
From what? These sites that are looks like
no, I know, I get it. All right, Kevin, thank you so much. Do you want to plug anything? Or do you have anywhere you want to point our audience? I mean, they already know you, but maybe not the listeners.
Check us out on SchrabHomeVideo.com on Sundays and watch stuff like this happen live and all kinds of other crazy stuff. We got, you know, 6 to 8 hours worth of stuff every night on Sundays to watch.
What's our time slot?
We're showing two a night right now. Your main time slot is at 4 p.m. We're also showing a bonus one at 2:30 p.m. too, Pacific. And
our numbers are okay, really? I don't believe you.
Yeah, no. We have a summer slump. It seems to happen every year since we've done this, and we're kind of in the middle of a summer slump right now. So overall, everything's down a little bit, but I mean, everyone's still getting tens of thousands of people watching every Sunday. So
why don't we monetize this? I mean, can we talk to Schrab, please, and monetize this? I'm dying.
We've looked at monetizing. It's so hard because we pirate so much stuff to like bring money into it. Kind of makes it hard to keep doing that.
Yeah. All right. Well, are you going to stick around? We do a bonus episode. You going to stick around for that?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. Go to patreon.com/reallifesci-fi. Listen to the bonus episode. We're going to continue the conversation with our friend Kevin Day. Go to shrabhomevideo.com every Sunday, all day. What time does it start?
2:30.
2:30 Pacific. Starts off with Real Life Sci-Fi.
Pacific.
2:30 Pacific.
Oh, we're the openers.
Yep.
That's okay. That's all right, I guess.
Normally that's been Abed's slot, but he hasn't
we're catching up,
so
and we'll catch up soon. We've got a few more weeks before we catch up, but
catch up to what?
To being we do the episode, it airs the same week.
Oh, gotcha.
We skipped a few episodes on Schrab Home Video, and we got like what showed on Sunday is a few weeks behind. So that's why we're showing 2 to catch up right now.
I see. Got it.
I don't know if this helps me in any way, but there's this new Netflix series called Resurrected Rides. I'm in episode 6. It's called The Ranger. Yeah, I'm in it. I think it helps me for you to watch it. I'm not getting residuals or anything, but for it to do good, I think maybe gets people to look at me. I don't know.
Dude, what are you talking about? It helps you in no way. You have fans here that are listening to you. If they want to see you, then go to Netflix and watch episode 6. Thanks for listening. Remember, just because you're paranoid, don't mean they're not after you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Real life sci-fi.